Welcome to We Drink and We Farm Things.
This is the farm comedy podcast that is an adult happy hour for the farming community.
We drink adult beverages, talk about the ups and downs of farming things, and give zero clucks about not having the perfect farm life.
We keep it real with you and share the mistakes we've made and what we've learned so you can feel less alone in this farm thing.
We drink things, we farm things. We drink and farm things.
Oh, hey there, Bev. What are you sipping on this morning?
It is Costa Rica coffee.
Ooh, so tropical compared to what is happening in our backyards right now.
Yes, it felt like an act of defiance to put it in my Alaska mug.
Look at you, so strategic over there.
I'm a rebel.
Yes, you are.
What are you drinking in your Joy Farmer mug?
Well, since we are recording rather early this day, I too am drinking coffee out of my Joy Farmer mug, and it is still kind of on brand. It's Kahlua coffee.
Ooh,
Yes.
that sounds delicious.
Yes,
Good
my
choice.
husband got me a really fancy Keurig for Christmas. And I got one of those multi-packs that come with like a bunch of different K-cups and
Oh yeah.
the Kahlua one. I was like, I'm going to save this for when we record super early one day.
My favorite K-cups were always the donut flavor coffees.
Yes.
I forgot who did those. Maybe Dunkin'
Like-
Donuts or
Yeah. The Cinnabon ones are good too.
yeah, those are good
Yeah.
too. I do kind of miss my Keurig. We drink
Yeah.
so much coffee over here though, it only makes sense to brew a full pot and in fact,
Yes.
we fight over the last bit in the coffee carafe.
You like got to stake out the coffee maker to get the last drop.
I'm like, I've only had 3 cups today.
I am not caffeinated enough.
Oh, our drink peep this episode is our friend and teammate, Katie Montgomery. So cheers, lady.
Cheers. All right. So I would say that at least for us, this episode is highly anticipated because I feel like we were on baby goat watch for a while. So today we're going to share about our recent kidding experiences with Miya and Tonks.
Yeah. And what experiences they were.
Yes. Yes. I think these were both very different for both of us too. Given that, I mean, Maya's gone, oh gosh, I think this was her 5th round of babies, I think. And this was Tonk's 2nd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're just going to talk through what happened and how they were different than previous births and maybe some of the things that we learned along the way.
Yeah. And there was a lot for me this time.
Right. Because you missed the first time, right?
I did. Yeah. I missed her first kidding. I walked in right after they were born. So she hadn't even finished cleaning all 3 of them off when I got in
so
there.
you
So I
barely
missed it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I've had those before too. And it's like, oh man.
Darn it. But I mean, as long as they're healthy, like I'm good.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
So Sam, why don't you start by telling us about Maya's kidding?
Sure. So, she had babies on January 22nd. So as we're dropping this, they'll be almost 3 weeks old by the time you all hear this. Right now they're about 2 weeks and they're doing great. But it was another random breeding. I don't know who the daddy is. This is how she rolls, but it could either be a through the fence breeding, which I don't know, or B, it could be and this lines up with the timing pretty well. One of the last rounds of boys just got around his little vest thing, his little bib thing.
Oh,
right
yeah.
before we castrated, because I walked it backwards. and one of the babies looks like one of Diana's kids from the last time. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if that was the daddy.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Yeah. So we are definitely a pet quality breeder over here. Because I don't know what the genetics are, guys. I just don't. It's like an episode of Maury over here. Like, we need to do the DNA test, find out who that daddy is.
It's hard to tell just by looking at them.
Yeah.
Because like one of the things that's really interesting about goats is their coloring doesn't necessarily come directly from what the dad or the mom looks like. Their coloring can be in their DNA. So you could know who the dad is and they come out and you're like, these don't look anything like either of them. And actually 2 of Tonks' boys are like that.
Oh man. So, okay. So we got her in the pen a couple of days before the 22nd. I knew she wasn't ready exactly, but I knew she had to be close because her udder was getting very close to what I call the, oh, damn, pun kind of intended there. Because you can see their udder growth the couple of days leading up because it does pick up. And when I feel like it looks like it's about to burst, that's when I know she's about to go. And also you have that hip sinking as well. So I noticed that on Saturday morning and I was like, oh boy, here we go. I bet you it's going to be today. And then I went out like around 11 and she wasn't there yet. And then I went out at 1 and I like made it just in time.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like my spidey senses were tingling.
So she wasn't in the barn for long before she went.
No. So she was hanging out in there and doing her lay down, get up thing. And I was like, okay, this is going to happen. And eventually she had the first one. I probably only had to wait like 10, 15 minutes. So I texted Matt and I'm like, it's happening. And then he comes out and he's standing there with me for a while. And I was like, I promise, just give her a minute. And so she had her first one and, she did a great job cleaning it up. Mind you, it was like freaking cold outside. It was in the teens.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad I was there to watch because I wanted to make sure she could keep up with cleaning however many she had.
Mm-hmm.
So it was about 15 minutes between the first and second one. And it was getting to the point where I thought maybe she was just going to have one again because she only had one last time.
Oh. But
prior to that, she always dropped 3. So I was like, well, maybe this is her new thing. I don't know. So I like kind of lifted the tail and I saw it was a girl and I about like crapped myself because she's always thrown boys. So I'm like, oh my God, it finally happened. This is a miracle. Like if you only have one and it's a girl, I will be so thrilled because like I said, guys, this wasn't planned and I can't keep them all. So
yeah.
I thought I saw like the beginnings of the placenta starting to come out, but then I was like, no, she's still laying down. Usually when she's done, she stands up pretty quickly. But then the second one came out. And so I was like, oh, cool. So I like kind of put it up towards her so she could start cleaning it. And then another one comes out and I'm like, okay, 3. Okay. She's back to her old habit. And then she starts pushing again. I'm like 4. So she had quads, which is the first set of quads on the farm. And I'm very happy that she did that because she's an excellent mom and she is our only registered doe and she comes from pretty good milk lines too. So I knew she would more than likely be able to keep up with 4 of them. Sometimes moms don't do so well with that many once you get up to like 4 or 5.
Yeah, they only have 2 teeth.
Yeah. Right. So it ended up being 2 girls, 2 boys. So yay.
Look at that.
Yes, she did so good this time. She got extra animal crackers because she totally can control that. But it was really cold outside. Typically I have gotten it down to being able to help encourage latching, doing the umbilical cords and worming Maya within an hour. This one was a little different, and I was out there for 4.
Oh.
It was cold, and I'm laying around on the ground, um, because their udders are so low to the ground that when they're trying to figure out how to latch, you kind of got to lay down and see what they're doing and make sure they're actually getting a good latch and they're getting milk or colostrum out. And 2 of them were just taking forever to figure out where the teats were and how to like latch onto them. And it's just like, oh my gosh.
You're like, no, please don't be bottle babies.
Yeah. So I finally just got to the point where it was like, they've gotten close enough so many times, or they did latch and just didn't do very long. So I was like, you know what? Leaving it up to Jesus at this point. I need to go like warm up and get dinner. Otherwise I'm not going to be okay. Because with how cold it was.
Yeah.
And I come back outside a couple hours later and they're just eating away.
Oh, good. Good.
So it was good that I followed my gut instinct that they were going to be okay. If I felt like they weren't, I would have probably toughed it out and stayed out there longer.
Yeah.
But 4 hours is a really long time to be rolling around on the ground.
It is. Gosh.
Yeah.
Especially when it's in the teens.
Yes. I also had to wait for Maya to give birth to her placenta. And she always eats it. And she does really good with it, but you do kind of want to keep an eye on that if you can to make sure they don't choke on it. And she actually had 2 placentas this time.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And that can happen when you get up there with multiple births, or births with multiples. Technically, they can still get away with 1 placenta. But if your goat had like 4 kids with 4 placentas, I did some reading on that, and that could mean that you might not be feeding them properly, or maybe feeding them too much, and it's like an overdevelopment thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how true that is because I just did some quick Googling. So if somebody else has had that experience, let us know if you know more than we do, because I thought it was kind of weird because I've never seen her do that or any of our goats do that before.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. So she ate like 1.5 of them. And she was full.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah. She takes her time with it. But it's good for them, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, we've made it through, at the time of this recording, almost 2 weeks now, and everybody's doing really good. Everybody likes their little heated hut that they're in right now because it has been really cold the past couple of weeks. And we did go do our disbudding appointment earlier.
Oh, nice. How'd that go?
Well, it was kind of, I forgot that our farm vet that I'm used to retired a couple of months ago. So we had a new one. So I think there are a couple, but I hadn't met this one yet, but she was super nice. And she actually gave me options for disbudding this time. Like obviously the last guy was older because he retired. And I think he was a little more old school, which I personally really don't mind. But she's younger. She's been practicing for like 7 years. And she offered me either to do it in the box, which is what I'm used to, where you like numb them up and put them in the box and burn them off, and nobody's really happy about it. Or we could sedate them. And I'm like thinking like anesthesia is not super good for goats. Like,
yeah.
But what it is, it's not an injection. She makes them smell something.
Oh.
And they like take a nap.
Okay. That sounds less like, dangerous than full on anesthesia.
So I didn't ask a lot of questions about it, and because I was unfamiliar with it, and I kind of like to do some of my own Googling research, at least so I kind of have a few points of reference and maybe even read some other people's experiences before I say yes to something new. I can't find exactly on the internet what it is that they're smelling that knocks them out. Okay. So next time I go, I'm going to just ask more questions about it. But she told me some people really, especially the first time they take their goats in to be disbudded, they don't know what to expect. And they like kind of freak out because the goats in the box, like they feel pressure. She did numb everybody up with lidocaine beforehand, but it's kind of like an epidural where you're still going to feel pressure.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It reduces some of the pain, but you're going to feel pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why, they're screaming, and it's scary. Who wants to be put in a box?
Yeah. For
So
sure.
some people really freak out if they don't know that's what disbudding entails. So she gives them a little nap and apparently does it that way. And she said if she's got a lot to do at once, she tends to recommend that approach. Like she had to do 9 at one appointment recently. So it probably just goes faster that way too.
It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a question. When she's disbudding in the box, do you have to hold the baby also, or the box does all the holding? So she can do everything on her own with the baby in the box.
Yeah, I think because she's been practicing so long, she kind of has it down to a science, but sometimes if they don't fit exactly right in the box, I did notice she was kind of like holding them and just doing the iron one hand.
Oh, okay.
Too. But the box helps contain them quite a bit.
Okay. Well, I'm curious because I'm trying to decide what to do for these babies. I need to go ahead and order the iron just so that I have it. My vet doesn't, I have a goat vet now, but she doesn't disbud. She doesn't have the right tip for Nigerian dwarf goats. So I either have to buy the iron and do it myself, which I'll have to do it by myself, which means I'll build a box and put them in it. But I wasn't sure if that was actually even possible. For this round though, I might go to the person that I bought Huckleberry from and see if she'll disbud again, because she was the one who disbudded all the babies last time.
Yeah, it's, for me personally, not something I'm interested in learning right now. Because I don't know, and I don't know if I have the stomach for it, to be honest. But if if you're in a situation where you don't have a whole lot of options and you want to disbud your goats, like sometimes you just gotta cowgirl up and do it. But I would drive a significant amount away to have somebody else do it and pay for it.
The other lady is like 40 minutes, which isn't too bad. I'll totally drive it and have her do it if she's willing to. Just because two of mine do have horns. The other one's polled. So because Tonks is polled, so she always has one kid that's polled.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, it is. It's really nice. I'm like, can all of them just be polled so that I don't have to?
Yeah. Well, I almost thought we got lucky here, but it was just that the boy goats develop much faster than the girl goats. So after like a couple of days, I was like, oh
yeah,
everybody's got to go in. Oh, the other super weird thing this time too. Previously, the previous farm vet, he would inject the lidocaine kind of like around the horn base, and do like 4 injections. This chick does like one injection kind of like behind and up a little bit above the eye. And I think that kind of like gets the whole area nice and numb, but it's weird because when you inject that way, sometimes it like irritates the eyes and makes them bug-eyed.
Oh,
yeah. So I had a couple of like bug-eyed goats, and she's like, it'll go down in a couple hours. If it doesn't, just give us a call. Luckily, everybody went back to their cute normal eyes because it was freaking weird.
Those like anime goats.
Yes, it was creepy because it was also kind of like their eyelid was almost like kind of protruding. It was gross. I should have taken a picture of it. But nobody busted their head open super bad, so I feel like she did a really good job. We just had like a little bleeding from one on the way home, but not bad at all compared to some of the other times, where stuff happens and they just like break it open or knock their heads.
Yep.
So I think that is the highlight. she did really good for having 4. She's continued to do really well. I haven't been weighing anybody or anything. I'm just mostly watching to make sure their stomachs aren't concave or feeling for that. Making sure everybody's peeing and pooping. So I'll just stand there and watch them for a while. Just because it was a smooth birth and she's a good mama. So I feel like, she's good to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have really good circumstance.
Good. That's exciting. It's always nice
Yeah.
when everything goes smooth and to plan.
Yes.
Which was not the case with Tonks.
No, it was not.
No. So Tonks had her kids on January 31st, and her estimated due date was January 30th. So she went a day late, which actually surprised me. Usually she goes a day or 2 early. Goats in general, goats don't typically go any earlier than that. Which is nice because I was out of town the week before she was due.
Yeah. Yeah. So you needed her to be accurate.
Yeah. So I needed her to be accurate. And it turns out she was, which was nice. The only thing is she was in the barn stall for 4 days without kids. And she was not happy about that.
I'm sure she let you know regularly how
she did. Yeah. And one of the things about our barn, for those that don't know, is I don't have a barn camera. So I have to go out there and just go check every few hours to see what's going on, which usually isn't that big of a deal, but it's January and it's been ice storming and very cold. So that's definitely made that just a little bit more difficult. And I get lots of suggestions on barn cameras all the time, but my hang up on getting a barn camera is that I don't have internet in my barn and it doesn't get cell service in there either. It's just something about where the barn is oriented. It's like a dead spot for communications. So a camera doesn't do me any good out there. But thankfully, my husband actually found after this experience that I'll tell you about in a minute, my husband found a solution to that and he ordered it already. So I might have it up by the 3rd or the 4th kitting, probably not the second one that's getting ready to go. But what it is it's a company called Airstone, and they have something called an air mesh hub. And you hang it on your farm and it will give you up to hundreds of acres of Wi-Fi repeating, essentially. So it catches onto your house Wi-Fi and it amplifies it out onto your farm so that you can have Wi-Fi coverage over your whole farm. And now we only need 12 acres, but we were like, well, that should be able to get it into the barn.
Yeah, you'll have to let us know how that works because I might do that too, because we've shut off most of our hot spots now. So I didn't have a barn camera this time either.
Oh, you didn't? Oh my gosh. Oh.
No.
That probably felt different.
The same thing as you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because usually you just get to check the camera and then you're like, oh, she's laying down, time to go.
Yeah. Or, oh, the babies are good to go. They're bouncing around. Yeah. So it's been a little more like let go and let God kind of situation this time, which isn't a bad thing. And like, I feel okay about it because I know how she is as a mom. I mean, she's going to be 5 this year. So she's pretty consistent. So that kind of helps go around, but it is super weird not having it. So I'll definitely be looking into that if it's working well for you.
Yeah, I'll let everybody know, but there will be a link in the show notes to it for anybody who feels like they need that and want to go check it out. It had really good reviews, so awesome. I'm excited about that. So because I don't have a barn camera, I had to keep going in and checking on her. And on Monday, which was a work day, I went and checked on her like 3 times. And then at around 4:30, I was thinking to myself, I can go out there now, or I can just wait until chore time because I've already been out there 3 times. And so I was like working and I thought, no, you know what? I'll go pop in on her really quick and then I'll just come back to my desk and work until 6. It'll be fine. Well, I went out there and she had a kid.
Oh, surprise.
just had one. It was still in the sack and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he wasn't cleaned off or anything. So I was like, oh wow, I like just barely missed this. So I text Jared and I told him, hey, Tonks is having her babies. I'm gonna just hang out here and watch. And he was on a meeting, so he couldn't come join.
Oh.
But she had the baby, she was cleaning it off, and then she gets up and walks around and starts her lay down and get up thing to have the second one, and nothing comes. I was like, oh, well, that's weird. Like, she just pushed really hard. I feel like some progress should have been made. Like, I should have at least seen something. And I have not witnessed a goat birth yet. So I thought, well, maybe this is normal. Maybe I just have the wrong impression on what a goat birth is supposed to look like. So she gets up, she walks around a little bit. She has a contraction while she's standing, and a water bubble comes out. So the water sac comes out. And I was like, oh, well, that's normal. That's one of the things that could happen, right? Depending on how hard the contraction was, maybe just part of the water sac came out, and then her next push, she'll push the baby out. Well, that didn't happen. She kept laying down and getting up and laying down and getting up. And then she pushed another time and a second water sac came out. So she had like two bubbles hanging out. And I'm like, that's really weird. That's definitely from a second sac. That cannot be the first sac, like twisted and like, you know,
right.
It's super weird. But again, I've never seen a goat birth before. So I was like, well, maybe both of these water sacs just need to break, and then one of the kids will come out, and then the next one, you know, will come out after. She did end up breaking the sacs while she was walking around, because she was just like, she's pacing around the barn and then getting down and getting up and getting down and getting up and then pacing. Then she'd lay down and she'd push for a little bit and then nothing would happen. And so finally I was like, okay, I need to look something up. The barn's a dead spot, so I can't Google it. And I didn't want to leave. So I texted Jared and had him have Aurora bring up my holistic goat birth book, because I had all the birth sections flagged. Yeah. So I was like, well, maybe I can find something about a 2 placenta in here. So, you know, Tonks is still wandering around trying to push things. I'm like flipping through a book and there's nothing about water sac. It just talks about how the water sac can come out first and then the kid comes out and that's it. But there's nothing about there being a possibility of two of them coming out. So I thought, well, this has got to be weird. Well, she pushed for about 45 minutes, which is a really long time between babies. And in hindsight, I should have gone and checked her sooner, but I wanted to just let Mother Nature take its course because I didn't want to intervene if I didn't need to. And she still had lots of energy. So we weren't in like crisis mode yet, but she was in a lot of pain. Like you could tell, like, I don't think I'll ever get those sounds out of my ears. I think I will hear that for forever. It was like nothing I've ever heard from any of our goats before. But Jared came in after he was done with his meeting, and I had already grabbed gloves and had them in my pocket, and I put one on and I was like, you know what, I'm going to just put my fingers in there and do like a swoop to see what I can feel. Because then I can have an idea of whether it's a head or a butt or feet or, you know, like what's happening in here. The first time I did it, I actually didn't feel anything. So the babies were still pretty far back. And I didn't go very far. Like I went up to my knuckles. So like I just did like a swoop on like the outer edges. And she didn't like it when I did that, but she did stand still, which was good because that would have made it way harder. So then I waited until she had a contraction and I did it again and went a little further. And then I could feel, oh, those are feet, which is good. That means that because normally the way a baby goat comes out is it like comes out like a diver. So it's got its two hooves, and then the nose is like kind of like tucked in between the two hooves so that they come out like a straight dive. It's all smooth, no edges to catch anywhere on the way out. That's like an ideal birthing position. And in fact, I did learn that a breech birth is normal presenting if the feet come first and it's not butt first. A breech birth is fine because it's just the backwards diver. You have a hard time getting the head out because it's a little bigger. So you've got to, you know, probably help with that. But so after that, I I reached in again and pulled just a little bit during the contraction because I was like, well, let me get these feet out and then maybe she can push the baby out the rest of the way. I get the feet out, maybe like 3 inches of the feet are showing. And I'm like, these are back feet.
Oh.
And Jared's looking at him and he's like, no, I don't think so. I think those are front feet. And I was like, no, I feel like those are back feet. So we go get the other kid and we're like holding the goat kid like up to Tonks's rear end, like looking at the hooves to like try to figure it out. And I'm like, gosh, I can't tell. So I went in again with my glove. I was being really careful to keep it clean since I kept going in and out. I wasn't touching anything else with that hand. And I felt around like the body of the kid. I got far enough up that I could feel the body of the kid. And I'm like, I can't tell if this is a butt or a tail or a head. Like it all felt the same to me. And now that I've been in, I think I could tell the difference. And I did think that I felt a head. So I was just like, well, maybe it is positioned right. It's just too big and it's not coming out. So what I realize happened now that it's over is the one kid was backwards and breech. So it was a butt and a tail that I was feeling. And the head that I thought I was feeling was the other kid. That's one of the things that can happen is they get like kind of crossed in there. So when you're feeling for goat kid parts and you're trying to figure out what to pull on, you need to make sure that you're pulling the parts from the same kid, if that makes sense. Because you can easily grab onto 2 legs that you think are from the same kid. And it turns out they're 2 different kids and you're not going to make any progress that way.
Okay.
Yeah. They can get kind of wrapped up around each other like pretzels in there. So at this point, like Tonks was getting really weak. She had been pushing for over 45 minutes. We weren't making any progress. All I had was feet out a few inches and I had pulled a handful of times. So I was being really careful at how hard I pulled because I was just like, I don't want to pull this kid apart. I don't want to hurt Tonks. Like all of the books say pull gently. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of trying to like gently guide him down. And then she started getting like she laid down and she was just like panting and her eyes were like rolling in the back of her head and she was like not moving anymore. So I was like, Jared, go get the NutriDrench. She needs energy and we'll see if we can get her enough energy to get this kid out. That they're like, this is go time. Either she's going to die and the kids are going to die, or I have to pull this kid out and give her a chance at life, regardless of what happens to the kid. Right. So I grabbed the kid's feet, like both feet with both hands. And I pulled so hard. I was sore the next day. That's how hard I had to work to get this kid out. I tried to just pull with her contractions, but that wasn't very easy because they weren't coming very often because she was weak and tired. So finally I was just like, I have just got to pull this out. Yeah. So I pulling. I got the kid about halfway out and it started kicking. So I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, yay. Like the kid's kicking. That means that the kid is still alive. Like I have a chance to save those kids. So then I was like kind of reinvigorated because I was like, I'm not pulling a dead kid. I'm pulling a live kid out. And I got him pulled all the way out to the shoulders. Then I had to put my hand back in there to like push the head down to get the head to come out. And then as soon as the kid came out, the third kid like fell out right behind it. It was amazing.
He's just ready to come out.
Yeah, it was totally ready to be born. Which was great. But then, poor Tonks had to try to clean 2 kids at once. So I did end up helping her a bit. Yeah, she was so tired, but the NutriDrench actually really did give her a boost. Good. It was night and day. I was so glad that I had it on hand, like total game changer for her. When I did get the breech kid out though, I put her straight to Tonks and then he wasn't moving anymore. I was like, oh shoot, like that was just too much. Like I pulled too hard. I pulled something apart or like I broke a bone or, something. And because, kids are like super floppy. So heads like just like flopping around. I was like, oh no, I was like, I thought I had broke his neck. That was how hard I pulled. But then I grabbed a towel. I was like, well, the other one was alive and wasn't getting cleaned out of its poor sack. But I thought like this one's needs immediate attention. So I'll get to that one in just a second. I grabbed a towel and I rubbed him just like really hard over and over and over again, because I was trying to clean him, I was trying to like get some blood movement and warmth, because it's 20 degrees outside, or it's 20 degrees in the barn, so it's cold and they're all wet and I'm wet because I had just pulled a baby out like into my lap, like it was like a human birth. Like it just because I just like pulled him into me. That was how hard I was pulling. And Tonks was cleaning his nose, which was great because that was probably helping him like stimulate him to breathe. And then he started breathing and kicking, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like he came back. Now let's get over to the other kid. And Tonks is a great mom. Even though she was really weak, she laid there for just a few minutes. So while she was laying there licking them, I was helping with the towel and kind of getting everybody like dried off because it was so cold. I was like, I don't want any kids to freeze now after all of that.
Right.
Like, you have to, like, this has to work. Then everybody was like, okay. It did take a long time to get them to nurse. And it was a really long time because I was soaked, I was cold, I was tired, I was sore. But we did get them to latch a couple of times. And actually I went inside and I grabbed a 2-cup measuring cup and a syringe, and I milked Tonks a little bit, and I syringed some colostrum into them like right away before, like right after everything was done, just because I was like, they need energy too, like they are beat.
That was a lot.
It was a lot. And I was also really concerned because they didn't have a very good sucking reflex. And you can check a goat kid's sucking reflex by putting your finger in their mouth. They should suck pretty vigorously, like once they're dry and warm and like kind of going like are ready to nurse, they should have a sucking reflex, and neither of them really did. But I thought, well, I'll go ahead and go take my shower, and then I'll come back and check on everybody because Tonks is a good mom. I know that she's going to be nosing them to get under there to figure it out. Then I'll check on everyone. Well, after I took a shower, I went back out there. I took a shower and blow dried my hair so that I was dry because it was too cold to be wet. I went back out there. Kids still they just didn't seem right, and they were cold. Like their ears were cold to the touch. The inside of their mouth was cold. They were like shaking, and I was like, well, I need to get them warmed up. That's why they're not eating. A cold kid can't eat either. So I was like, well, I'll just hang out with them in front of the heater. I was rubbing them both down, trying to warm them up. And I did that for like 30 minutes, and they never perked up during that. And so I was like, well, I need to bring these kids inside so that I can warm them up. And I put them in a laundry basket with a towel and a heating pad. And then they sat in my bathroom while I took another bath, because while I was trying to warm the kids up, I sat in amniotic fluid.
But of course.
And I sat in it for so long that it soaked all the way through to my underwear. It was the grossest feeling I've ever had in my entire life. I was and I was in my bibs too. It soaked through my quilted bibs and through my pants and through my underwear.
Oh my gosh. That's pretty gross.
It was.
I would feel pretty subhuman at that point.
Yeah, I did. I felt super subhuman. So I was like, well, put the babies in front of a heater with a heating pad and their blanket. They were really quiet, and I was just soaking in the bathtub, and I was thinking through like, what am I going to do if these kids like don't rally? I don't really have anything like for them necessarily. I did end up giving them each a pump of Nutri-Drench once we got into the barn. But before we went back out into the barn, while I was taking my bath, suddenly they both just like popped up and started making noise and tails wagging. They're like aggressively rooting at the laundry basket. So I was like, oh, they're ready to eat now. That was what it was. It just needed to get warm. And I took them back out, and they nursed. It was still a struggle, but they did nurse. So I was like, all right, we're good now. I can leave them out here for the night. I don't need to have them sleep with me. I'm going to go rest because I am just like exhausted. I've had insomnia for the last couple of weeks. So I did wake up at 2:00 in the morning, and then ended up going out there to go check on them, and everyone was doing okay. But I did go out there with a bottle of kid colostrum just because I wanted to see food go in them in order to sleep for the rest of the night. And everyone took the bottle okay, and, took a few good drinks. They're tiny, so they don't drink a lot.
Right. And that means it can be really hard to catch them nursing too.
Yeah.
They do little bits frequently.
Yeah.
Kind of like a newborn baby, human baby. So yeah, it can be tricky, but those first 24 hours are so critical that if you're not seeing it happen, it's definitely like makes sense to be helping them out.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that they had all of the energy they could possibly have to try to get over the traumatic birth hump
that all of you had.
Yeah, that all of us had. And they did. One of the ways that I made sure that they were eating was I did weigh them right after they were, not right after they were born. I weighed them when we went back out after my first shower. Everyone was over 3 pounds, which was kind of amazing, actually. Yeah, they were big,
that's really good
kids. Yeah.
And maybe that's why there was a little struggle there too, is because she had a heavy load of babies in there.
Yeah, a heavy load and they were all boys. Boys in general tend to be bigger than the girls. They end up taking more of the energy and the nutrients in utero.
Yes.
And when I weighed them that night again, I weighed them at 2:00 in the morning. They were actually just maybe just like an ounce or two heavier, which was perfect. Yeah, that meant that they had something in their bellies and they hadn't lost any weight. So I felt really good.
Yeah.
The next day, I ended up taking off of work just because I couldn't. I just I woke up that morning and checked on everyone at like 6:30 in the morning. Everyone was alive. Nobody was like super peppy, but I wasn't necessarily expecting that. They were just alive. Tonks was being caring, and I watched the baby's nurse. They were getting up, they were able to stand, they were walking over to her. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to take today off work. That way I can be out here as much as I want to. I can relax. It can give me an opportunity to kind of decompress from all of that. And plus we have this ice storm blowing in and I can use the time to prep for the ice storm.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least she did it before the ice storm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank goodness she did it before the ice storm. And that's exactly what I did. And it felt great. I made some goat sweaters, which actually I feel like none of them were fully warm until I made the goat sweaters. I do feel like they made a big difference. And they love wearing them. It's so great. So I'm relieved. I thought that they would hate them, but no, they seem to be enjoying them, which is awesome. And something else that I haven't mentioned yet that I did for Tonks is right after the delivery, because it was so traumatic and I had to go in with my hand, I texted the vet and asked her to give us a shot of antibiotics. And
good idea.
Yeah, she got Nuflor and it was 5 cc's for her. The Tonks weighs about 85-ish pounds. I kind of had to estimate. But I feel like that's pretty close. And I did that because when you introduce bacteria into that area, it can cause so many problems for the mama goat. And I just was like, she needs a preventative antibiotic. And she had gotten one during her last kidding because she retained her placenta during the last kidding.
That's right.
Yeah. This kidding, she did not retain her placenta. She ate most of it,
Good.
Which is great. She probably needed it. After all of that, she needed the energy from it. She did great after the antibiotic shot. The antibiotic shot is painful for them. which
Oh.
is kind of a bummer. And I couldn't have the vet out to give it to her because I was still on COVID isolation. So no one could come to the farm to like come help, or at least I wasn't going to ask them to.
Right.
I was towards the end of it, but still, like, I just like didn't want to, I didn't want to expose any of them. Yeah. Because I did have Omicron, and it's super, super contagious.
Right.
Like, all you gotta do is look at someone with Omicron and you end up with it.
Like, just even like a side eye, like,
yeah.
oh, got ya. Yes.
So getting the shot was a little tricky because I couldn't leave to go to the vet to go pick it up, and I couldn't have the vet come to the farm. So she dropped off to the clinic, and one of my friends, my friend Nate, picked it up on the way home from work, and he brought it by, and he came in and like he got to see the babies and loved it and gave me the shot. And so I had to administer it myself, and I do our vaccinations myself. But a 5 cc antibiotic shot was something a little different because she did not like it. They stand still for the CD&T shot, did not stand still for the antibiotic. So I got about 3.5 cc's of it in behind her front arm. Like, that's usually where I can pull the skin back to get it sub-Q. And then I didn't want to put it in the same spot after she had fought me and gotten the needle out. So I did the back leg and did the last 1.5 cc, and she wasn't happy about that either. She kept glaring at me after it was done. Thankfully though, the vet had written on the bag that there would be pain at the injection site, so I was prepared. So I put her in the milk stand, because normally I would have just stood in there and done it, because they don't flinch for the CD&T, or at least mine don't. But when I saw that on the bag, I was like, this is a milk stand. This is a milk stand kind of shot.
Yeah. And I think some antibiotics, I don't know if that one is, but sometimes they're a little thicker too. So
it was a big needle.
So it takes more effort because of the needle and the thickness. But goats don't like ivermectin injections either. And we've had to do that for my not COVID, and it stings real bad. And what's funny is my intact buck goats are the ones that are the most dramatic about it. So dramatic, but they're okay. Like, everybody else did pretty okay with it. Like, clearly they weren't pleased, but they were like falling over and acting like they were stroking out, which is scary the first time you give something, because you don't know, like, maybe they are having an anaphylactic response. No, they're just drama kings.
Just dramatic. My intact buck goats always act like they're gonna faint when I'm trimming their hooves.
Yes. Oh gosh, how dare you?
So in the end, everything has turned out really well. Tonks and the babies are thriving, which is great. And I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I thought I was going to get them out alive. Like, once I got them out alive, I was like, all right, well, I got everyone out alive, but I'm not holding out hope that everybody's going to stay healthy, because like, it just seems like a lot.
When they're in there for a while too, they can inhale all kinds of fluid, and that can get into their lungs. Like, you just don't know until you can watch them for a little bit.
Yep, exactly. And they were like squeezed in the birth canal together for about 45 minutes. And next time that happens, I'm going to sweep further back and more around. Like, I'm going to try to make sure that I get 360 degrees, because I think that what could have made a difference and made this go faster is if I had realized that what I thought was a head that I was feeling and was the head of the other goat, I can push that goat back and pull the other one forward a little bit, and then it's the only one in the birth canal, and then maybe you don't need so much force to pull them out. But I do want to let everybody know that if you feel like there's just no alternative and you're not making any progress, and you know that you need to get that goat kid out, like, don't hesitate to pull as hard as you think that you need to. Like, I used every ounce of strength that I had. Jared was just standing and watching and helping with Tonks, like giving her the nutrients and stuff. And I almost asked him to grab a glove and help pull. Like, that was how hard I was pulling. Like, it was just like, I don't have any strength left. So So it's encouraging for anybody who hasn't had to experience that yet. If you do end up experiencing it, that you can have a good outcome, even going through all of that trouble. So don't necessarily lose hope right off the bat, like I did.
Well, yeah. And that's pretty traumatic for you, for that to be the first one you really witnessed. You had to like dive right in. Like, I've been extremely lucky. We've been doing this for like 3 or 4 years, never had to glove up and go in.
Yeah.
But it's always in the back of my head to be ready. And you just have to like let your instincts and your knowledge for what you Googled before kick in. And that's intense though. So does like Jared find you more attractive now, do you think, now that you've done that? Because it's pretty badass.
I don't know. He hasn't said
You
anything.
should ask him.
Right?
Like, do you find me more attractive now that you've seen my hand up a goat hoo-ha?
I mean, I mean, I do feel a little different. Like, that is the hardest thing that I've had to do on the farm so far.
Yeah. It's badass.
And I've had to do some pretty hard things. So I feel like that's really confidence building, because I know I can do those things and survive. And even if we hadn't have had a good outcome, I think I would have been able to work through those feelings eventually.
Right.
Because we've had death on the farm before. So there are just some things that are out of your control. And there was nothing different I could have done in her prenatal care or her nutrition or anything to prevent something like that from happening.
It just happens sometimes.
But I do suggest the book. It's a holistic goat care. They have diagrams in it that show all the different ways baby goats can present, and gives you step-by-step instructions for getting them unstuck, which is incredibly helpful. Now, my situation wasn't in the book, but it's because it was just like 2 kids tangled up in each other with the back feet presenting. Like, that is just something that was totally out of the ordinary. But it, like, you know, there's a bunch of different ways the kid can come out. Like if the head is back too far, you know, you've got to reach in there and pull the nose forward, and then you can usually get them out. Or sometimes one leg is sticking out and one is tucked under. You reach in there, you grab the one that's tucked under, straighten out their body, and then they come out. So the book is really good for that. So if you're feeling unsure of what you might need to do if you ever have to go in to pull a kid out, worth its weight in gold to have those diagrams and have those step-by-step instructions. And you're not going to remember it all. You're not going to follow the instructions perfectly, but having that prior exposure to it gives you at least some, like, something to fall back on instinctually, I think. And I had read that section a dozen times before she gave birth the last time. So yeah.
So you were ready.
Yeah. So I was as ready as I could be without having done it before, for sure. Yeah. So we'll put a link in the show notes to that book.
Awesome.
Whew. That was a long one, guys. I would like to know, I would like all of our listeners to go into our Facebook group, though, and tell us about any goat birth experiences that you've had. Because I'm sure that you guys have a ton of stuff to share and have seen stuff that Sam and I haven't even fathomed yet. So please share those with us, because they can be a good collection of knowledge for people to build on for when they start their goat kidding adventures, if goat farming is for them.
I mean, I'm sure like 10 years ago that you would never think that you would be taking a bath with 2 baby goats in your bathroom at the same time.
Yeah. Jared was pretty mad at me because he thought that I was bringing them inside to like stay. Like, no.
It's just to warm them up, because it is important. Like, I've had ones that I've just had to warm up and then they perk right up and they're fine. But yeah, it's not like they were in bed with you. No.
Tempting.
Just snuggle up with all of them.
Just go to sleep. Like, go cuddle puddle.
So to round out today's episode, we're gonna remind you kindly to leave us a review. And you can do that over on Apple Podcast, or if you can't figure out Apple Podcasts or don't have it, don't want to download it, totally understand. So your other option is to call and leave us a voicemail with your review, and we will play those intermingled into the written ones. And that still qualifies you to win a free coffee mug. So what we do is we take the reviews that we read from the month and draw a name out of the hat for that person, and they win that coffee mug that is not and never will be in our shop. So make sure you leave some kind of identifier, like an Instagram handle in the review, so we can find you.
Yep.
All right, Bev, do you want to read this week's
Sure.
review? All right.
All right. This one is from T Powell 1030, and it says, long time drinker, first time farmer.
I love that.
Same.
I can't believe that somebody else hasn't written that before. It's so good.
We bought a large farm last year, totally spur of the moment, and we decided we could be farmers and ranchers. You ladies have been a godsend. Clearly, I know very little about farming, but here you are to save the day. You're teaching me all the things, sharing drinks, making me laugh, and keeping my stress down. Keep up all the great things. Oh, thank you.
Hooray. Awesome. I love that you just decided to be a farmer/rancher. I mean, that's really all it takes, is you just gotta take the leap sometimes. So super proud of you for jumping in. I'm glad we're here to help.
Yeah,
That
for
is why
sure.
we do this.
That's exactly right.
Yes. All right. So just a few quick things before we wrap up today. We do have a series over on our Patreon called Straight No Chaser. And this is available to our patrons at the $5 level and above. So if you want to check that out, you can go to patreon.com/drinkandfarm to sign up or upgrade. If you're already a $2 person, this is a great way to support the podcast. It's not free for us to do this. We have 2 team members that we pay to produce this podcast. We've come a long way over the past, 4 years? We're going on 4 years now.
I think, shoot.
Well, I've been in this house for 5.
Yeah,
So
it's our
and we
4th
did it-
anniversary
yeah.
in March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've grown a lot because of you all. So we appreciate the support.
Yep, we do.
Mhm.
And make sure that you take a look at the show notes. You'll find links to some of the products and things that we discussed in this episode, a link to a survey so you can tell us how we're doing anonymously, all of our social media links, and a link to our merch shop.
So that's it.
Yeah, for
That was a
sure.
lot.
It was
It
a
feels
lot.
kind of silly to say that's it, because that was a lot. And I think what we've learned today is that Bev is a badass. In a non-sexual way. I find you more attractive, even if Jared doesn't. I admire you so much for gloving up and going in on your first witness birth. That's such a big deal.
I hope I never have to do it
congratulations.
again.
Yeah, hopefully that was like your quota, and the rest of them are smooth sailing. But it's awesome that you could share that experience today. So thanks for doing it for the podcast.
I'll tell Tonks thanks too.
Yeah, there we go. So until next time,
Drink
farm
and give 0 clucks.
We drink things, we farm things. We drink and farm things.